Welcome everyone to Edge Talk Radio. This is Angela Zabel, that's me, and I am here today with Dr. Don St. John, and we are going to have a lot of fun. We're going to be talking about healing childhood wounds. He's an author, a psychotherapist. We're going to be diving into a lot of different aspects of the childhood wounds, but also who are we? What are we here to do? So stay tuned for this interesting interview. And today, I am Angela Zabel. Who am I? I have connected with spirit my entire life, working with the team in the non-physical. I share messages from a multitude of realms with people. I am a teacher, coach, medium, radio show host, writer, retreat host, gallery reader, doing speaking engagements, offering guidance, mediumship, and intuition to people around the world. And most of that is online. I also do some in person, but a lot of it's online. And also, I have the Amplified Universe membership. This is a membership on growing who we are. What is our role in the world today? How can we connect into ourselves and all that's around us? And you can find more of that information on my website, angelazabel.com. Remember, I'm also on pretty much all the social media aspects, sharing knowledge and working with people all around the world. And today we are here with Edge Magazine. Edge Magazine is the leading events and media resource dedicated to all aspects of holistic living, health, wellness, and the mysteries beyond. Sharing information, wisdom, and resources, committed to promoting businesses, organizations, and individuals who support our collective journey to wholeness and balance. And Edge Magazine is currently in 30 states plus Canada, with over 17,000 magazines per printing, and has a vibrant online magazine with over 42,000 people reached per month. So you can have this magazine shipped directly to your door, sign up for their newsletter, or become a drop spot. Check out their website at edgemagazine.net. And today we are here with Dr. Don St. John. Very on in his educational career, Dr. St. John realized that the box of traditional clinical psychology and psychiatry was too small to hold all the tools and concepts needed for healing. He's forever grateful. He searched outside the box. I've got to say, that's one of my big things. Get outside the box. So this is going to be fun. He's forever grateful he searched outside the box. Over time, he encountered not just tools and techniques, but different schools of thought, both novel and derived from wide-ranging sources. Decades of exploration led him to construct a view of healing, purpose, and human potential that includes four essential and interrelated components: the somatic, body, the psycho-emotional, the relational, and the spiritual. And we're going to dive in deeper on that. As a psychotherapist, teacher, author, and mystery teacher of Christian, I can't pronounce this one, ayahuasca. Ayahuasca. Oh, that's how it is. I thought it was spelled different. So the church. As a child, he endured years of intense physical and verbal abuse in his Italian-American Catholic home. He entered adulthood in a physically hypertense body, emotionally frozen, relationally and spiritually void. The healing adventure of 50 plus years has resulted in a fulfilling marriage, 38 years and counting, I would assume, with his life partner.
39 now.
Oh, 39. Nice. The enjoyment of being in his body, trusting in his own abilities and instincts, and trust given to him by others and their journeys. A love for life and the wonderment of a higher power. He's the author of Healing the Wounds of Childhood and Culture, an Adventure of a Lifetime. You can find out more about Dr. Don St. John at pathsofconnection.com. He's also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and on X. And make sure check out his book again on Amazon and also on his website, Healing the Wounds of Childhood, the Culture and Adventure of a Lifetime. He offers somatic health, psychological education, relationship enrichment, and spiritual health. So, Don, I am so happy to have you here today. And I just want to ask you, as you started down this path, was there a moment or a culmination of moments that put you on the path of pushing out of the box? Or were you always a little bit of a rebel, questioning what's taught?
Well, I think both are true. I think I always was a little bit of a rebel. Began to develop a slight mistrust for authority when within Catholic school I saw how they weren't walking the walk. The teachings were about love and peace, and the behaviors of some of my teachers were just downright cruel. So, that questioning, that doubt began very early on. But before I began to step out of the box itself, the box of mental health and verbal psychotherapy as the only answer to so-called mental issues, before I even reached that box, because where I grew up in a tenement building 20 miles north of the Bronx in New York, uh, that was quite remote. I mean, the only people who saw a psychotherapist were, had to be a little crazy. The stigma back in the early 50s was quite powerful. But one day when I was 20 or so, 20, 21 years old, still in the Air Force, I woke up in the back seat of my car. I'd been drinking all night. I was, having I was bleeding from my throat,
Wow.
and looked in the mirror and said, "You need help." And so that was the first, hit that I had to get in that box and find a psychiatrist. So I did, and in time I began to realize how serious were the traumas that I experienced beginning at birth and continuing for the next 15 years. I won't bore your audience with the details of those years. Angel, suffice to say that they were on the brutal side, you know. And after several years of verbal psychotherapy, and a whole lot of reading, it began to dawn on me that it wasn't enough. I had to do something about my body because trauma affects. One of the things I learned, and is important to emphasize, is that trauma affects the whole body.
Yeah.
Okay? In recent years, say the last 25 years or so, you know the field has recognized that the brain and nervous system are clearly impacted by trauma, and I've gone way beyond that to recognize and know in myself that the whole body, the muscles, the connective tissue, all of it is affected by trauma, including our spirituality. And there was a moment where I awakened to the importance of spirituality. I was in a conference with a spiritual teacher. His name was Brew Joy, Dr. Brew Joy. He was a medical doctor who became ill. He was the medical director of a major hospital in Los Angeles. He got sick. His colleagues couldn't help him. Western medicine could not answer his situation. So he went to India and found a spiritual guide and was healed and awakened to what he called living from the heart. And it was
Nice.
about love as a condition of being, not hallmark emotional, you love me, I love you, but a state of being. And he came back and he began to teach, and I was taking one of his residential conferences, and I got a phone call on my very second day from my wife, and she wanted to come talk to me, and she did. She had to drive 2 hours and told me she wanted to begin an open relationship. And by the way, she had already started. And
No, that's a little bit of a pill to swallow there.
that's a little bit of a pill to swallow. And after you swallow it, you start, you're banging off the walls, bouncing off the walls with rage and pain and confusion. But we were supposed to be focusing on love. And after a night of empathy and compassion, Brew came in the next morning and said it was time to let go, time to let go of the emotional level. We all had to move on, now, I, he was talking to me, at least that's the way it felt. And I went crazier because how could I? How could one let go in one day of that kind of impact, that kind of shock? And throughout, and we had a choice: let go or go home. He'd give us our money back. Go home, it's fine, no hard feelings, but this is what we're doing here. And I'm going through the day in this angst and these eruptions of rage and pain and tears. And when all of a sudden in the late afternoon, my heart did this flip. It opened in a way that I'd never known.
Nice.
And it was filled with love, not for anyone in particular. Not It was just love. And eventually I recognized it as the presence of the divine that just came in that moment. Now, the pain and the rage continued for a couple of more days, but they were in a different context. I wasn't any longer the victim of her behavior. It came, it went quickly, there were waves, but otherwise, that feeling kept my heart in this very, very new place that I'd never known before. And then all kinds of mystical experiences happened throughout that week. I left my body. I was up on the ceiling. I'm looking down at it. And oh my God, it's true. I'm not really that body, but I'm in it. And then I got scared 30 seconds later and back into it I was. And so that opened up a whole new dimension of my growth. And I continued decades. That was in 1976. And to this day, I continue to work to evolve myself, not just spiritually, not just psychologically, not just somatically, but all of them, all of them. So,
I think that's something really important for people to know, that there are going to be times where you're feeling all those emotions, the rage, the anger, the hurt, and knowing you can get through it. It's not it not that it was easy for you, but you were in a moment where you had all the support around you in that moment to help you see some of the love, the divine love for yourself. And that divine love, and that's something I've experienced, is just the divine love. I don't know if there's really words to describe it. The
yeah,
feelings you get when you feel that divine love, except sheer joy and expansion, and like you're not even really here, and it can make you weep just out of nowhere.
those are great words: sheer joy and expansion. And yeah, it can make you weep. And yeah,
And
it's a
that's
beautiful experience.
and that's something, as you
You-
move through this, did you, so I'm just gonna say, the listeners are all asking, did you stay with your wife or not?
Ah, no, no, we concluded that it would be best to go our separate ways. we it was very, very amicable. We didn't fight about it. It was we both, she found the Course in Miracles and spent the remainder of her life. Unfortunately, it was too short, but she spent the remainder of her life studying and teaching from the Course in Miracles. uh, it was a moment that turned both of us in a spiritual direction, but we knew we just weren't ready to be together in a marriage.
And that's something that the reason also because everybody would be a cliffhanger for so many people. But also, they also wanted to go through it with you because they wanted to show people it's okay to move on from people. It's okay to start a new life, to move on from what doesn't serve you and move forward. And that's something a lot of people hold on to the detriment of themselves and a lot of people in different relationships to have that ability to say, I've gotten everything I need out of it and to move forward. And with you, you move forward and you kept going and you kept opening up your heart. And that's something for people to realize you can get through it, you can move through it. And you did it. I just keep hearing my team is just saying you did it with grace, you did it with dignity, and you moved yourself forward without the anger holding on to it as you move forward. And that's something that made such a big difference for yourself and those around you. And as you continued to go down this road and understanding you, and I've got to say, for you to have a class and have something to go through and talk about the opening of the heart at that point in time, because that was a time where this stuff was not talked about. That was like, way out there,
Yeah,
way out there at that time. You were on the cutting edge at that point.
it seemed to be, yeah.
What drew you into that? It was just part of your studies, or was there something that was drawing you to go listen?
That's a very good question. I want to before I answer that, I want to say that you expressed a recognition of something that's very important when you said, I had the support to go through it. And I sure did. And it really was important. And to your listeners, there's a lot of support out there. If you don't believe you have it, look, start to look for it because it's out there and you can find it. And if you're going through something difficult in your life, uh, it's essential to feel support and not alone, because the feeling of being alone, it's one of the most challenging aspects of trauma and difficulties. If you feel the support, it's so much easier. Uh, and
Yes.
to answer your question, can you repeat it again, Angela?
I love that answer because it is so key for people to realize you have support. It's trusting yourself. And the more you awaken and understand that, it makes life so much easier. And they're bringing me back to where you said things were magical and mystical and things were lining up for you. And that's when you start trusting and realizing the support is there. Things line
Mhm.
up, synchronicities happen that you can't even imagine. You can't even see it coming. You can't even imagine how good it can be when you're opening yourself up to
Exactly.
that. And
Yes, exactly.
so that they're saying when you signed up for that, because it wasn't a requirement, it was something you signed up for. Were
Mhm.
Was it intuitively that you signed up? Was there a pull to it, or was someone like, "Hey, you should take this course, get over there"?
Yeah, there are two answers to your question. And the important one for your listeners is pay attention to what presents itself to you. If you get this little hint or a voice that says, oh, you should try it, even though you may know nothing about it, if that voice is there, if that feeling is there, go for it. And I've done that almost my entire life since I was in my 20s. And I also had a friend who took that same conference the month before and said, "Hey, this is about love. You should go check it out. You're starting a private practice." I said, "Yeah, that'd be good right now." It was like that, knowing very little about what it was and even less about what was going to happen to me. Yeah.
That is a very important statement right there. To walk into something, you don't know what's going to happen to you. You don't know what the outcome is going to be, but you feel you should be there. You feel you should experience. You're going to get something out of it. You don't know what, you don't know the outcome, but you feel you should be there. And that's that intuition, and that they're just saying you follow your intuition your whole life. That's something you have, even when things got, they're just saying for you, even when things got dreary, you were still following that intuitive thought. You were still looking for that intuition to get you where you needed to be. And they're saying that for you, that's something so important that has helped you then and helps you now with so many people, working with the people every day. When you're working with people, you're using your intuition so much more than the
I
clinical
agree.
aspects.
I agree. There were times, Angel, when it got hard, but one thing it never got was boring. It never got boring. I mean, there were challenges in these 55 years. I'm 80 years old, almost 81.
You don't
And
look at it at all.
thank you. And and I attribute that to the recognition of the importance of understanding the body as a starting place. Okay? Because we think we know what the body is. We really don't.
Yeah.
We really don't. I'm just beginning to get inklings about what it is. And I've been, practicing different disciplines and uh, techniques for 50 years, some of them.
And the thing is, you started, I mean, psychotherapy, you're working with the head, you're working with the brain. You didn't start out as that being part of the body, the rest of the body adding in. And you really kind of push the limits. At what point was it all the way through where you just felt there's more connections with the body and the brain, and bringing that through the whole way through? Or was this an evolution as you watch, seeing people, were people coming in with not only mental type issues and issues with psychotherapy, but were they also coming in with medical issues along with it?
Yeah, well, I personally had medical issues. I get migraine headaches from the time I was about 3 years old. But what guided me, I did about 4 or 5 years of psychotherapy from that first incident that I mentioned earlier when I said I need help, and I found a psychiatrist, and I did a lot of verbal psychotherapy, but I also did a lot of reading. And I
Mm.
came across the work of a man named Wilhelm Reich. He
Oh,
was one of Sigmund Freud's disciple, and he was highly regarded for a number of years by his colleagues, his peers, until he began to say that the body had to change for the personality to really change. Once he made that assertion, once he came to that conclusion based on his own work with patients, he began to be perceived as a kook. You know,
interesting.
this was way back in the 1920s, 30s, somewhere along there,
On
a
the
long
cusp.
time ago, it was 100 years ago. He was saying, the body and the personality, are equivalent, functionally equivalent. You could predict one from the other. And, he was seen as a crazy guy, and he left Austria, went to Scandinavia thinking he'd be accepted there. His work got farther and farther out. He
Mm.
started talking about energy.
Oh,
Now if he talked about energy, his classrooms would be full of interested people. Back then, oh, he was, and then he came to the United States where he developed this box, this organ box, and he said it could help with cancer. He was arrested and died in jail in the very early 1950s in the United States for practicing medicine without a license. So anyway, he made sense to me. And then I came across the work of a woman named Ida Rolf,
mm,
who evolved what she called Rolfing structural, she called it structural integration. It's better known as Rolfing. Now there are different schools like the Hellerwork School of Structural Integration, and it directly changes the body. It works directly with the tissues to open, align, balance the body. It fascinated me, and I began receiving that work back in 1971,
wow.
and
Mm.
and got trained to do it in 1979. So yeah, I mean, things like that spoke to me. They called me because I was so disconnected from my own body. I had very little sensation and feeling and animation. It was all above my neck.
And if you had, so for one thing, I'm really impressed. You were really out of the box a long time before people even knew there was a box there.
Yes, exactly.
And as you started doing that, you were integrating it into your work. And were people accepting of that, or were you doing it, as they say, kind of on the sly, adding it in a little at a time?
No, no, people were accepting, and I had a practice that, back in the 80s, I did a lot of structural integration, Hellerwork structural integration, and I had psychotherapy clients, and people were accepting. Well, of course, I was in San Francisco and then Seattle, so they were cities that were more amenable to disciplines and approaches that were slightly outside the box. And, it spread by word of mouth. And today, I think the box is expanding. And I think it's important that it does. One of the things that I came to, Angela, is that we're here. I keep looking above your head. I can't tell if it's a book or a poster, but the
Poster.
words say personal and spiritual growth. And I came to the conclusion that that's why we are on this earth. And
Absolutely.
I have a problem. I mean, I think it's good that the profession is recognizing the prevalence of trauma. But I
Yeah.
have a problem with the notion that, there's a way to heal trauma, the author's way, whoever wrote the book, and says, this is what you do to heal trauma. And then you're back to normal.
Yes.
And that always bugs me just a little bit because from my perspective, we are all, we have all experienced some level, even minimally, life negating injunctions that are inherent in the culture and passed on. through the family, through the media, through our understanding of why we're here, even that, we're here to what? To win, to be successful. Why are we on this earth? What's the main thrust, purpose of being on this earth? And for me, it's personal and spiritual growth to become, our full self, which, the mystics tell us is to unite with the divine. If I may step out of the box here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I love
And
this.
okay, good. Because I think that's why we're here. And I think we have whatever we have from childhood as our curriculum. That those are the wounds we need to address to con- continue on this journey, on this adventure where we learn to really love and receive love,
Yes.
where we recognize our own fluid nature. Our nature is fluid. What does that mean? We're highly adaptable. We're highly resilient. We're fiercely powerful.
Yes.
We are amazingly receptive.
I love that. And something you brought up, you hit a lot of points. And that personal and spiritual growth, that's what we're here to do, to understand ourselves. And I found something on your website. I took it off, but it was a quote you had from Maria Montessori. And it said, everyone talks about peace, but no one teaches peace. In this world, you are educated for competition, and competition is the beginning of every war. When he will educate himself for cooperation and to offer each other solidarity, that day he will be educating himself for peace.
Mm.
I saw that and I'm like, how perfect. Because this
Hmm.
is, there's the peace that you feel without in the world, and also the peace within yourself and healing who you are. You start there, and the rest takes care of itself. And
Hmm.
we've been taught so many things to keep ourselves in opposition to each other. And as we discover that, we start putting those things to bed. We start realizing what they are, and we start recognizing that divine aspect within us is
Hmm.
so huge, that divine aspect. And that divinity in ourselves helps us to heal. And also, when you mentioned that all of us, everyone heals trauma in a different way. That is so true. To think there's one way out there, one way to do it. It's to experiment and explore and see what else and see what works for you, what resonates with you. And that's something you have been doing so much of, is finding all of the different ways. You don't just teach or show one way, you show a multitude of ways for people and how to help connect with themselves and heal the trauma that they've dealt with throughout their lives, because everyone's different. Did you start that with your own personal healing, finding things that worked from a multitude of different aspects?
Yeah, everything I've studied, I've also experienced as either a student or a patient. Yeah, and sometimes I started as a patient and then studied, and sometimes I studied something first and then became a patient to experience it from the other side. And I think one thing that's important as we're having this conversation, Angel, I want to emphasize that it's not, healing is not about returning to normal. This
Yes.
notion of normal, this medical notion, get rid of the symptoms, return to normal. Look at what's normal out there.
I don't think
It,
you want the normal.
we don't want the normal. Healing is about becoming whole.
Yes.
and becoming it's not a static location. It's not a destination that we reach, unless we begin to walk on water and
Maybe
multiply
later.
loaves. Yeah, it's a direction, it's a path, it's an increasing sense of self, an increasing sense of possibility. We love becomes abundant. Okay? It's not confined to one person, once a week. It's
Yes.
abundant. It's a heartfelt experience of many interactions and moments of nurturing connection. It's beginning to open to certain psychic abilities and intuition. It's recognizing that our bodies are mostly water. Beyond that, they're mostly space. How does that jive with how we how we normally experience our body? Okay.
I agree. And and that's something too for people to realize we are a lot of water and
Yes.
water takes on resonance. You can put sound in water for miles. Look at the whales, how they can put sound through water for miles. If you look at yourself as water, how much resonance you have with so many things around you and taking on aspects from other people. I just keep hearing, check your water, check in with your water. How are you feeling? How are you flowing? If you're not flowing, there's something in there stopping that flow. And to dig in deeper to what it is, that self-exploration. And for you, you've been on that self-exploration path for a very long time. And it's, you know, I feel people and I feel your heart is just so big and so open to helping so many people out there. And you're more than willing to share some of those experiences you've had to help other people as they go forward. And a lot of people, there's people out there when you talked about numbness, there's a lot of people I talk to where they're saying they just feel numb. They feel like they experience things here, they take it in, but they just feel numb to all the emotions. And as you went on your path of really awakening yourself to feeling those emotions, has the was the numbness something that went away in stages? Was it where you left a lot behind at one time and then smaller increments? How did that work for you?
It was a gradually increasing process of feeling myself, sensing myself. Uh, I studied a discipline called continuum that's based on the fact that we're primarily water, and water moves in waves and spirals and pulses, and not in straight lines. And I've been studying this discipline for 30 years, practicing it. And now at almost 81 years old, I'm teaching groups of 40-year-olds how to move fluidly, how to do this fluid movement meditation. And, there's a certain irony in that. There's a certain absurdity in that. And yet it's been one of the fruits of my labor, putting in many years to develop that. And it is gradual. Um, but it's certainly worth it. Mhm.
And I like the fact that you said for you, it was very gradual for you. And I keep hearing it was gradual for you and it is gradual for others, but their amount of, and I don't even know if this is a word, but they're telling me graduality. I don't even know what that is, but the amount that it graduates forward is actually speeding up and going quicker for people, especially the younger people. And it's taking teachers like you to show them, here's ways I did it. and they're releasing quicker
Mhm.
and faster than has ever been done before. And it's because of people like you who were on the forefront, who were reaching out of that box, and how it's helping so many now. Because they're saying that the people in your classes, they're having extreme growth and letting things go a lot quicker and making such a big difference in faster leaps and bounds because you were on the forefront, finding all the little techniques to change that around. You did the hard work.
I had to, Angela. The option was to live a dreadful and short life.
And I
Because,
think I think that's, something for people to realize. By you not taking care of yourself, by you not exploring what's causing the numbness, what's causing this, do I want to be happier? It does cause a lot of medical issues and it can shorten your life, absolutely. And being a miserable life. I mean, I think all of us here and everyone listening know people who are living a life, but they're miserable living it. And you certainly, to change that trajectory, is something important for people to know they can do. They can do.
yes, Angela, this is so important. Just this morning, I was reading the Washington Post, and there was an article, maybe it was the New York Times, one of those two. At any rate, there was an article that said that someone put out a video on what he called functioning depression
Oh,
and described it as a low level of depression, an individual who's, getting up in the morning, going to work, going through the day, not clinically depressed, able to get out of bed, able to function, but underneath a sense of loneliness, a sense of emptiness, a sense of just no joy, no spark, no happiness. That video that this person put online got 5 million hits.
wow.
Wow, 5 million hits. I think it describes so many human beings out there today. And I think the reason, the underlying cause of all of that is not knowing that we are on this earth to engage the journey of personal and spiritual growth.
Yes.
And I want to address one of the objections that we might hear when we say that. Somebody will raise their hand and say, "Isn't that narcissistic to think you're here just about yourself?"
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right? Okay, so
I'm
I'm
being
I'm I'm
selfish.
gonna I'm
Do
gonna preemptive response here.
it.
The answer to that is absolutely not. It's the contrary, because personal and spiritual growth includes, at some point, has to include the recognition that we are all connected and that it's all about relationships.
Yes.
Yes, an intimate sexual relationship with one person, but love relationships with countless people.
I love that. I love that because I hear that so many times. Well, if I concentrate on myself, then I'm being selfish. And you can't do that. And that's not being, open to all this divine energy out there. So, absolutely. And to concentrate on yourself, to work on your personal and spiritual growth, by doing so, you open up your heart to be able to connect to all the other people, the other beings that are out there. There's so many other
Yeah,
souls that
yeah,
are out there.
yeah.
You're able to connect when you open up your own heart, but when you're in a space of numbness and not feeling, that's where it's hard to connect to anything. And this is a time when you
Exactly.
I've
Exactly.
people
That's why
need
it's just
to.
the opposite. Whether it's a
Absolutely.
church community or your work community, professional community, uh, group of friends, whatever it is, we need community. We're not isolated creatures. We live in a field of consciousness. And we have
Absolutely.
to recognize that we're in that field, that we're part of that. We belong in it. And when we meet, to not be afraid to love. That's part of the journey. That's part of the adventure, to learn to not be afraid to love.
And that's something I've heard a lot. A lot of people are afraid if I love them, I lose a part of myself if things don't go right, or I have a friend, I love them for now, but what if it changes? Then I've wasted my energy, and I say you're never wasting your energy on love. You're never wasting it. And to know that sometimes I don't remember the exact saying where things come in sometimes for a season and then they leave. Things are always moving and changing, being open to changing, but don't try to they're bringing back the abundance you mentioned, the abundance of love. Don't think you have to hold love as something that has, they're saying the sense of lack with love, to not have to hold that in, like if I use the love here, I won't have enough for someone else later. They're saying the love grows, it's just abundance that continues to grow. A lot of us look at abundance in only monetary instead of in the love and who we are and how it shares with the world. And that's something you've done so much, sharing with throughout all your years, sharing with people, helping them feel love again, and that numbness to move through it, and that functioning depression. I think that's rampant at this time. Hence the reason it got so many views, so many
Yeah,
views.
5 million.
And for people to realize they're not alone. That
Yes,
shows there are
yeah,
many. So even if you can't connect to anybody else, but can connect when you're feeling this functioning depression, can connect and see there are many others in the same place, you're already opening your heart in that moment. You're opening your heart to let something more in. You're opening your heart to that personal growth and that spiritual growth. You're already doing that by recognizing, oh, I'm not alone.
yeah. And that's at the core of the problem, because it's that feeling of being alone, being isolated, not, we need, there's a psychologist, I can't think of her name right now. She was at the University of North Carolina, and she wrote a book called Love 2.0. And she was talking about love moments, you
Mm,
know, felt love moments where you actually, we all say, yeah, I love you. I love my wife. I love my kids. And sometimes, we go through life thinking we love each other, feeling good about each other, maybe, but
maybe.
we don't feel the love. We don't like, we need those moments where we feel it. And when she got to the part of the book about how do you do that, it essentially came down to spiritual practice, meditate, work on connecting with your own heart, clear the stuff that causes fear and worry, preoccupation, you know? It's that what I call the adventure of a lifetime. If you can never had a really good relationship, find a psychotherapist. Have a really good relationship. Learn what it feels like. Uh, Address your body. There are all kinds. You can start with yoga. Everybody knows about yoga. Back in the early 70s, late 60s, when I began this journey, yoga was rare. yoga was, there was a studio here or there for those strange people who went to stand on their heads and things. It was now there's a yoga studio on every main street in every city, right? And that's
Absolutely.
that's been the last 60 years. Now, over the next 60, everything that I'm talking about, everything that I mention in my book is going to be on every street corner in every city because it helps, because, a guy who was as stiff and disjointed and disconnected as I was, now in his 80s, teaching young folks how to move fluidly, how to live more gracefully. I mean, if that can happen here, imagine all of you who didn't go through the hell that I went through. Imagine what's possible for you.
That
Imagine, John Lennon put it, imagine.
I love that. I love that. And it is, it's so exciting to be in the cusp. We are in the cusp of extreme change right now. And there's so much going on and being in that cusp of that change and everything you went through and writing that book. And again, the book is Healing the Wounds of Childhood and Culture, an Adventure of a Lifetime. Right there it
I put it
is.
up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, I just feel from that book, there is so much beauty, so much healing, so much connection. Because my team on the other side is saying the connection with you sharing your story, sharing what worked for you and how you move through it, that is so key for others to see they're not alone. Because you had and I don't know your whole story, but they're just telling me that you had a hell of a childhood, okay? A hell of a growing up time where
Yeah.
you had like multiple different layers of experiences. A lot of people might experience one type of bad experience, let's just say challenging experience. You had multiple levels of them. And because of that, you were able to reach so many more people because they're seeing, oh, I didn't experience that, but I did this. I didn't experience that, but I did this. And
Mm.
going, but he had all of them. I can get
Yeah.
through this. I can
Yeah.
get through this too.
Yes. Yes. That's
That's
why I'm here speaking.
that's really a testament to you pushing out of the box, being in the forefront. You've been a teacher your whole life, and being there to teach people has been such a big help for so many. What's the, if you had to look at the book, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, but if you had to think of the book that you wrote, what is the part that maybe was the most impactful for you as you were writing the book, or you feel for people that are reading the book?
Well, I think the most challenging for me was to convey the following understanding. At some point on this journey, it's important to realize that you, my friend, you are the author of your life.
Yes.
And what makes that so hard to convey in a way that's compassionate and empathic and clear is that if you look at my childhood, my mother started swinging at me when I was 11 months old with a
Oh,
little bit of rage behind her open hand. Okay. Now, if someone were to say, well, you're the author of that, I'd want to punch him in the nose, right? Of
right.
course we would. Of course we would. How is that child, that infant, responsible?
I
You
like where you're going with this.
Well, yeah, it's delicate because at some point I realized that everything that happened was part at my arriving at this point, this moment in time, sharing this with you.
Yes.
Somehow, you know, even though those things happen, and we would all construct a similar story about how awful it was, how terrifying, absolutely terrifying, freezing the organism in terror. Yet the meaning was my writing. And I've been writing all my life. Now, we'd all write a pretty similar story if that happened at that age. But once we recognize that we are writing, okay, then we start to change the story a little bit. We have to work through the feelings, believe me, the pain, the rage, the fear. We have to melt the terror. We have to do the work. It's not an idea, just one, it's not a thought that, oh, I was responsible for it all, blah, blah, blah. It's not that. We have to do the work. I'll give you an example. I had the privilege of taking a seminar with a man named Viktor Frankl. He's world famous. You may know him. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. Now, what happened to him was one of the most horrible things that could happen to a human being. Okay? He was Jewish in Austria
Um,
back in the 1930s.
yeah.
Okay? He was captured along with his family. The Nazis killed his entire family, children, wife. They burnt his books. Somehow they didn't kill him. And he came out of that enlightened. He came out of that with the recognition that there was one thing they could not take away from him, and that nobody could take away from him. And that was the power to choose his attitude.
Yes.
He built a whole system of psychotherapy on that comprehension. And it's similar to what I'm saying about, yes, it happened to me. Yes. And to complicate it, my mother and I adored each other. I mean, that complicates it,
It
you know,
does complicate it because you
because
want to either have the feelings of rage or anger or the feeling of love, and it feels like it's almost like ping pong going on all the
yeah,
time.
and it freezes, the ball freezes in midair.
Mm. It's a good way to put it.
You can't go close and you can't get away.
That is a good way to put it. And there's
You
so many
adore
people.
this person and you're terrified of this person. This person adores you and they come at you with shoes, open hands, wooden spoons, an occasional knife to terrorize you into obedience.
And
Yeah.
that's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
for
it's a lot.
it's a heck of a
Absolutely.
lot to put and to they just want to go back to where you said we are writing our own book. We are writing our own book. The difference, they want to add something to it. They said you choose to come into the family you choose, and you come in to work through the information, your own energy with it, and to move past it. But just remember, every time you come in, the people you choose to come in with, they could have also helped you with that energy, helped you with those lessons in a way that was supportive, or they could help you in a way that was not supportive and was very detrimental. They did choose how they chose to help write your
Mm-hmm.
book. So don't take the blame for it, but also don't be the victim of the book you've wrote. And that is something so important to not be the victim.
Yes. Yeah. Do you want my reaction to what you just said?
Absolutely.
That's out there. That notion that you chose the family you came in with. I have a sense that there's truth in that. I don't have an experience of that. My experience is that, boy, that was the perfect family. You know,
Might not be the
that,
way you wanted it to go for sure.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't voice that on anyone else. I
Absolutely.
wouldn't wish that for anyone else. But somehow that's what this being needed, to, but it required my making the choices that I made
Absolutely. It is the
to
choices you make.
to develop what I had to develop and to continue. It's a work, as you said, it's a work in progress. The choosing part, I don't know from my own experience. I know a lot of people would think that's absolute nonsense, and a lot of people would think that that's the fundamental truth. You know, I personally have not experienced it, so I would say I'm open to that possibility. I'll take an interim step and say it was perfect for me. So,
That's the one thing is they just say, even though you may choose the family you came in with, the family dynamics, they chose how to react to your energy.
yeah, yeah,
They could have chosen a way where it would have been so supportive and you would have been writing a book about how how you can have a supportive family and how they can help you move through your own personal traumas. And that wasn't the book
maybe.
you wrote.
Yeah, I might have written a book on accounting or bookkeeping because if there weren't as much trauma,
Trauma.
I might have grown up and worked in a bank and, you know,
That's the thing.
so
Your
that's
path is always open.
yeah, it's all speculation, but this is the path that I am on.
The biggest thing is with everything you've experienced, you've helped so many people see they can move beyond their trauma. They can move beyond it. They can be functioning. They can feel love. They can feel joy. And a lot of people don't feel they can get there anymore, but you're living proof of that.
Yes, yes. And the resources are out there.
Absolutely. So is there, I know we went a little bit longer. I think we're right about the hour mark right now. Is there something you'd like to talk about to close the session? Because I know you have to get out of here soon.
No, I think we covered a lot in this hour. The only thing I would emphasize is embark on the journey.
Mm.
It's a somatic, psychological, relational, spiritual journey. And there's so many, you said it earlier, things will begin to appear for you once you make that choice or reaffirm that choice if you've already made it. Have faith in that choice. Things will appear that will support you, and trust your intuition, trust the guidance.
I love
And
that.
thank you, Angela. It was really a pleasure talking to you. To all those
Absolutely.
who are in there helping you.
Absolutely. They love this. They're always like, "Ooh, who's next? Who do we get to play with today?" I do hear from them. They are just so thankful that your journey could have gone completely the other way. Your
Mhm.
journey couldn't, you could not be here. You could not be sharing everything with everyone here. And they are just expressing their gratitude and thanks to you for finding yourself, for being very vigilant and wanting to find the answers for yourself and move yourself through trauma and helping so many others as they do the same. And the numbness, because the numbness is so important for people to realize you can move beyond the numbness. And I've got to say, I was there before too. You don't feel anything and you ask what's wrong with you because
Mhm.
I should be feeling something, but I wasn't feeling much of anything. And now I feel a lot and it's awesome. It's great. And so do you. And that's the big difference, and you're helping so many people out there. And I just want to thank you again, Don. I appreciate it so much, and I appreciate we kind of went off air and talked about our the meanings behind our names, which maybe we'll catch into that another time. But it was so important to make this connection for people to hear from you, to hear they can move through their childhood trauma and can heal their mind, body, and spirit all at once, do that personal and spiritual growth. So thank you so much for sharing all that with everyone.
You're so welcome. Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation.
And I want to thank you again. And I want to encourage everyone out there, make sure to go out and check out his book, Healing the Wounds of Childhood and Culture, an
It's on
adventure.
Audible now.
It's on Audible. Oh, how sweet. You can listen to
Yes,
it there. That
yes,
is cool because so
yes,
many people are so busy. I love it. Audible.
yes.
Nice. So definitely check that out, get the download, and check out his website, pathsofconnection.com. And all these links will be down below, and also Facebook, LinkedIn, and X. And just know also offers the somatic health, which is somatic is the body, the whole total body, correct?
Yeah, it's more, that's a whole other conversation, but
I know.
briefly,
We could go.
it's our connection with our body. It's how we connect from the inside.
That's key. And it's
That's
connecting
key.
to our body, to change everything on the outside and the inside. It has to be done together in sequence. So thank you so much for that. And then also offering the psychological education, relationship enrichment, spiritual healing, health. So check out his website. There's a lot of great information out there. And I just want to thank you again. Again, it's Dr. Don St. John. You can look up his information. All the links will be down below and pathsofconnection.com. Just want to thank you so much for sharing your time, sharing your knowledge. I appreciate you greatly. And all those on the other side appreciate all you've done for so many too.
Thank you. You all.
And I want to remind everybody, make sure to watch the next episodes of Edge Talk Radio. They're on the first and third Tuesdays of the month at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And you can find those as downloadable podcasts on all of the podcast aspects. And also, you can watch them on my YouTube channel, Angela Zabel, Teacher Coach Medium. And thank you all for listening, expanding, and amplifying our universe together. Thank you all and have an absolutely amazing